Hi everyone. I wanted to create a video to show you all how to do the project calculations in Excel that are required for your statistical project that you're working on. So I know many of you may be familiar with Excel, but some of you may not. And so I thought a quick tutorial in terms of where to find the calculations and some helpful tips and tricks would be appreciated. So what I've done here is I have used the question, how long is your average daily commute in hours? And I've put together a sample data set of 20 samples. So here they are. And I know for your project you'll actually have 100 samples, but the process is the same irregardless of whether you're using 20 or 100. I just made it shorter just for the purposes of the demo. So once you have your data, you'll want to put it into a format like this in an Excel document. So just open yourself a blank Excel document and plug in your data. So basically each data point will have its own line. And I just went ahead and I put my question at the top, and then I highlighted all of the data, and I put a little text box around it just to make it easier to actually see the data. Now, once your data is in here, you can actually begin performing some of the statistical analysis that you need to do for your project. So the first thing that you need to do for your project is to put your data and actually calculate your 8 sample statistics. So I've gone ahead and picked a few here. So we are going to do these sample statistics here. So we're going to take a sum. We're going to do a max, a minimum value, a range, a mid-range, a mean, a median, a mode, and a standard deviation. And all of these calculations have built-in formulas here in Excel that we can use to help. So I want to show you those. But before we get into that, I want to just throw out a couple of words of caution. Excel has a lot of different versions. The version I'm using to create this video is actually the Mac version because I'm doing this on my Mac laptop. But if you happen to use a PC, you'll notice that in general, Excel, irregardless of what edition you use, whether you use a PC-based or a Mac-based version, they're all going to contain the same information, but it may be located in slightly different places. So one of the things that you'll need to do is definitely acclimate yourself to your version of Excel that you're using. But just understand that everything I'm going to show you will exist in your version of Excel. It just may be located in a slightly different place where you actually click. But I'll give you some ideas of where to find it as we go. So in Excel, all of your formulas are located in one place. Now there's a shortcut bar here for me, and you'll notice that it's this sum of symbol. So we've seen that in many of our equations, and that's actually the symbol for those formulas. And there's actually also a formulas tab here. So I'm going to navigate to the formulas tab, and in here, and again, in a PC version of Excel, it'll be in a slightly different place, but there'll be a symbol like this. And if you use this drop down, let's see. Nope, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Hold on. You can actually pull up a number of different calculations that you can use to actually, do the different things that we're looking at here. So if I come up here, so actually, rather than navigating to formulas in this version of Excel, I think I'm going to come in here to more functions. So I'm going up here to the sum symbol and going more functions. And it's going to actually bring up this little bar where I can find all different things that I need. And this formula builder, the Excel version has this, or the Mac version of Excel does. But the other versions of Excel will have something kind of similar. And you can see that there's tons of different formulas that you can plug in. Now we're going to focus on the ones that we've written. So the good news is that they're all called the things that you would expect them to. So if I click here on sum, it's going to ask me to select a date range or a range of tiles. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of my raw data and then just hit enter. There's my sum. Okay, let's do a maximum value. I'm going to double click maximum. I'm going to again select all of my data and hit enter. 72 is my max number. Perfect. Let's do our minimum. I'm going to come here, double click minimum, and I'm going to highlight all the data and hit enter. There's my minimum value. Now range, we can see if there is a function in here for range. Let's take a look. There might not be. I think there's one for mid-range, but not range. But either way, your range and mid-range are pretty easy to find, especially if you've already done your maximum and your minimum. So your range is simply your maximum value minus your minimum value. So in this case, 72 minus 2 is 70. And your mid-range is just dividing your range in half. So that's 35. Perfect. Okay, back to our formulas. Now in Excel, mean is called average. So just be aware of that in here. So you're going to double click average. And we'll go ahead and select our data again and hit enter. There's our mean. All right, median. Now for median, there is a function in here for that. So I'm going to double click median, and again, I'm going to select all of my data. There's my median, 29.5. So that would be if I laid all of my data in order from the smallest value to the largest and took the middle value. Now in this case, we had an even number of values, 20 values. And so we took the average of the two centermost values to find our mean as 29.5. Okay. Then we can calculate a mode. Now, granted, you could just look up a mode. Some of you may have repeats in your data set and others won't, and that's fine. But here's my calculation for a mode. And if you see this NA, it means that there is no mode. So I'm just going to type that in, no mode. And then finally, I can do a standard deviation. And unlike when you had to do those long equations to solve standard deviation, in here it's actually called it's called STDEV. So just be aware of that. In every version of Excel, it'll look like this. It'll be like STDEV. So I'm going to, well, first I'm going to select the box where I actually want to put this. So I'll do that. I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to, again, select all of my data. Now, one thing you'll notice is I'm going back each time and selecting my data. And that's actually important because each time it's going to want to include all of the other columns that you've put in. And so you need to correct it back to just your raw data in order to make sure your calculations are correct. Okay, so now we've done the standard deviation calculation, and you can see it gave us a big decimal. There is a way in here to easily deal with that. If you come in here, let me just move this down. All right. Well, let's see if I can find it in my version of Excel, what I'm looking for. Always fun. Because like I said, every version is a little different, and the Mac version is not the one that I use most of the time. Okay, actually I found it. Here it was. It was where I thought it was to begin with. I just missed it. So you'll see this button here with these arrows and the 0.00. That's how you can actually change decimal places. So if you click this button, it'll actually round this for you. So you can round it down to like 2 decimal places. You don't need all those decimals. Okay, so there, we did all the sample statistics. Here they all are. So you can see using technology, this is a very quick and easy process. And so if you're struggling with this, please reach out to me because this is not meant to be a time-consuming task. Within Excel, this should be pretty straightforward how to actually go about putting this together. All right, so now we're done with our formula builder. Now I want to show you a little bit on the actual graphs themselves and how to put those together. So one of the things that you'll need to do to create graphs will be to create some classes that you can use to then summarize all of this data. Because if I try to just graph my raw data, it's all just going to be scattered data and isn't going to make a lot of sense. So I'm going to create some classes for myself. So for mine, I'm going to do, let's see, miles driven, or let's see, we'll do average commute. And I'm going to create a few classes. I'm going to create one from 0 to 9 miles, one from 10 to 19 miles. But be aware that when you put in some numbers, it likes to reformat them as dates. And it's because Excel is trying to do what it thinks you want it to do, even though in this case it's not what I want it to do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in here and just select this column and right click. And if you come in here, you can go to Format Cells. Within Format Cells, there you'll see this first column called Number. And what I want to turn this into is just a text field, which means it won't mess with any of the formatting of the numbers that I put in there. So now I'm going to go ahead and re-enter that. So 10 to 19, there you go. Now you can see it stays. 20 to 29. And we'll do a couple more. I'm not necessarily going to follow the exact data. I'm just going to create some just to show you all. So imagine that I have these 4 classes. Now, granted, again, you're going to actually use your data to do this. I'm just making things up just to make what I'm trying to demonstrate easier here. But say I have these 5 classes. I'm going to go ahead and just highlight these guys. And let's say I have, I have 2 people that did this, 5, 8, 10, and 4. Okay? So granted, you're going to use your real data to create those classes and figure out what makes sense for you. But once you've done that, graphing your data is actually very simple in the system. So you're going to highlight the little table that you've made, and you're going to come in here to, in this particular version, I believe it's under, under Charts. Now, in other versions, you might even see a shortcut on the home page, or you might see a little graph symbols. Just search around in your version of Excel, and if you happen to get kind of stuck where you're not sure where to click, just Google your version of Excel, and you should be able to locate it from there. Now, when I come in here to Charts, you can see that there's a number of different standard charts that are in here, and actually there's even more than these. However, the 2 most commonly used ones for this type of data is going to be a bar chart, which is in this version of Excel called a column chart. And actually, if I click here, you can see that there's a lot of different versions of that. But I'm just going to do a basic one. And then I would also recommend a pie chart. So I'm going to highlight my data, which I already have, but I'll do it again here. So highlight my data, and I'm going to just click here and select the graph. Done. There's my graph. So now you can do some different things in here with it. You'll see up here there's some different layouts I can select from. So like one like this where I can put a title on here. So I can say, average daily commute in miles. Oh, miles. There we go. And you can delete these little labels and things. And basically, there's your graph. And it's the graph of your frequency distribution that you created, which if you go back to chapter 2, is exactly what we actually did here. And we've graphed it. Now we can do the same graph, or I should say the same data, but actually select a different graph type. So this time, let's do a pie chart. So here's my pie chart version. And again, I can select one that has a title, and then I can put that title on here. So I can actually copy this title and paste it onto this title. Making it angry. All right, let's see here. So I can delete what they've got, just kind of the standard language in here, and then I can actually paste my real title. Oh, well, I did something to it bad, but nonetheless. Let's see, what did I do? Well, nonetheless, here we go. I'm just going to start from scratch here because clearly my cutting and pasting was not working well. So average daily commute. Boy, I can't spell tonight. There we go. Okay. So now we have everything that you really need for your summary statistics. You have your raw data. You have your 8 summary statistics. You have your classes that you've put together, and you have your 2 graphs. And this is actually all you really need to do for your project, with the exception of constructing a confidence interval, which you'll do outside of Excel. And you'll learn how to do that in Chapter 7. So I hope that this was helpful in terms of how to use Excel to solve for the basic calculations and the graphing that you need to do for your project. Please reach out to me if there are any questions on your particular project or how to best summarize your data or to how to best graph your data. All right, thanks guys.